We say it proud. Nicholas Erpe, the CMO. Alex Erpe, the CEO. And Xavier Yerpe, the closer. We love Xavier Yerpe on this show.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you.
My favorite Erpe is Xavier. We love him tremendously.
That's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I say it all the time. You
Yeah.
guys know this here. I love the family all together. Michael, we love you as well. Mrs. Erpe, we have yet to meet you, but we love you as well. I feel like I know you. Give the show a like and a share anywhere you are watching. Distinguished gentlemen, how you feeling?
I'm in. We're going to fight over this mic, Nick and I. But yeah, I'm feeling great. It's going to be a lot of fun. I love the Erpes. This is like an extension of my Easter family gathering of 30 folks. We're just going to kind of carry Easter along. The only thing that we're missing is a little bit of wine and a little bit of food. And
We got Vitae Spirits over there.
there you go.
Merchant Financial Services and Today Manana partner.
Yep.
There you go.
Ian Glomsky, right?
Yep.
That's
the
right.
Fantastic Ian. I don't know if he's back from
I
his.
think he might be coming back soon.
Is he coming back from his trip soon? But also TJ there at the tasting room downtown. Fantastic.
I love it. I love
I
it.
haven't met Mom, but I got a feeling she's listening, and by the time we go live with the cameras, food will be here.
If she was within driving
absolutely.
distance, it would be here.
Does Mrs. Erpe watch all the shows?
I think so.
Yeah,
When she-
and if she misses one, she'll watch it later on, and
Exactly.
that
yeah,
means
no,
I have
she-
to
she
suffer
will
through
go
watching
find the
it also.
recording.
That sounds like Mrs. Miller. Is Mrs. Erpe like Mrs. Miller, the toughest critic of the shows?
Oh, big time.
Is she?
Alex
Yeah.
comes home one day and she's watching the show when he was on with you, but she had missed it earlier, and she goes to him like, no hello, no hi. She just says, "Why did you say that way? Why didn't you say it this way?" And he's like, "Well, hi, Mama, how you doing?"
Sounds like Mrs. Miller. I love you, sweetheart. And that's why we love them.
Mrs. Smith
Absolutely.
does not do that to me,
She does not do that to you.
and I'm lying to you.
Yeah.
That's what she tells you what to say in advance.
Judah Wickhauer, we can rock and roll when you're ready.
There's a lot of truth in that.
Guys, good Tuesday morning. I'm Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk with Keith Smith here on the I Love Seville Network, presented by Yes Realty Partners, guys. Yes Realty Partners and Keller Williams Alliance, one of the presenting sponsors of Real Talk with Keith Smith. Today's show is going to be dynamite. The Erpe gentlemen are in the house, the fellas, the hombres, the guys are in the house. You, in a matter of moments, are going to see the fabulous Nicholas Erpe, the Antonio Banderas of finance, Alex Erpe, the closer, the Mariano Rivera of finance, Xavier Yerpe. It's going to be a dynamite show. Sit back, grab your café con leche,
Yes.
and enjoy as they take a page out of Alex Erpe's book. Judah Wickhauer is our director. Let's go to the 4-shot and let's welcome, actually, it might be, is it a 5-shot or is it 2 on a 4-shot?
We're sharing a shot.
We're sharing a shot over
mic.
here.
We're sharing a shot. I'll be right back.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing
Fantastic.
Well, fantastic.
Fantastic.
It's Easter Tuesday, and all is well.
I love it. So the Tuesday after Easter?
Oh yeah, no, the week is
It's just 2
Easter
weeks, that's
Sunday,
right.
Easter Monday, Easter Tuesday, all through the first week of Easter.
Oh,
It's
fantastic.
funny, Yona and I were talking about that. So on, Yona's Austrian, and so it's a Catholic country.
Yep.
And so there's Easter Monday, and they're off. Everything
They're
is
off.
off.
Yep.
It is a national holiday.
It is in many European countries.
Well, they
Yeah,
say in Italy that it's on Sunday is with family you spend your Easter, and then on Monday you go and you have a picnic with your friends. That's usually
That's
how they do it.
exactly-
That's the tradition.
I like that.
Which
It's-
I always thought would be nice.
Yeah, it's called Pascualeta, right?
Yeah.
And Pascua is Easter in Spanish, and Pascualeta is Monday, and
Little
it's
Easter.
Little Easter,
Little
and that's
Easter,
exactly
yeah.
what you do. You go to the country and for a picnic. It's
So
fantastic.
let's do the obligatory introductions for the half a dozen
Yep.
people who do not know everybody at this end of it. So Xavier, we'll start with you. Introduce yourself and who you are and how you got the closer title.
Wow. Okay, that's a tough one. I'll have to ask Jerry how he got that. But although I'll take it any day when he says Mariano Rivera. So I'm
You
Xavier.
love Mariano
Oh,
Rivera.
absolutely.
He's Cubano?
No, he's
Panama.
not. But he's
Oh, he's
close
not
enough.
Cubano?
No,
He's from Panama.
Panama. That's right.
He's a New York Yankee, which is
He's
You're a Yankee
I'm
fan.
a big Yankee.
And you
fan.
close deals.
And I guess
They
that's
bring
what
you
it
in.
is.
Okay,
Yeah,
you
they
showed
did
up
try.
a little late today because you were closing the deal.
Yep.
Well, that was a little different. I wasn't closing a deal. I was closing some trades, which were a little
Well,
tougher
then-
than usual. That's a whole different story.
Isn't that
But
a deal, though?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's a
Yeah.
deal.
It was
Just
good-
take
it
the
was- it
compliment.
was
Why
some
gotta
deals.
be so difficult?
Well, there's different kind of deals. That's right. That's a deal. Thank
It
you.
comes with age. That's what we're allowed to do.
Anyway, I'm Xavier
There you
Earpy,
go.
Chief Investment Officer of Emergent Financial Services, and these are probably great times for Emergent because when things are tough is when we shine, and I don't mean in the sense that we shine per se, but it's when things are tough, people get nervous, and that's when we're able to go back to clients and say, listen, we did all this work, right? And we figured out exactly what you needed, and it's working, right? And it makes people feel calm, and that's the most important thing because with everything that's going on, it's so important to make people calm. And so it makes me feel good. So times like this, I read the news and I read all the research, and it's like you feel like pulling out your hair, but then when you're able to speak to a client to say, things are working well for you as we suspected and as we had planned, it makes you feel good. So
Isn't it
I
great
feel
when
great.
a plan comes together?
Absolutely, yeah. Doesn't always happen, but
I think it happens more often than not. I think
Absolutely.
we're
Yeah,
being
oh,
a little-
absolutely.
A little, I don't know what the word is. I'm just going to let it go.
Humble.
That's it.
Humble's
That's
the word.
Humble's the word.
Yeah.
I struggle with that word sometimes.
Alex Earpy, my friend.
I'm Alex Earpy. I'm the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Doing well. I usually, same thing with the Xavier Fund. Just last week, we were working with a lot of people to really get their retirement savings in on time. So it's just a matter of working with people as to when they come in and say, all right, I need to, my accountant says I got to put this into my Roth, I got to put this into my traditional IRA. It's working with them, all right, how do we do that? How do we get that in before the deadline? Just the little things like that so that people know that they can call me up, and if they need something done, we can get it done for them. So
I'm Eagle.
Nicholas Earpy. I'm the CMO and financial planner at Emergent Financial Services. So, I was going to say that we were a little busy earlier in the year as well
On the
because that you
financial
get the
planning
financial
side.
plans in, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is how much you can put away. Now you got to do it, and then I pass it off to Alex, and that's why he's been busy now.
So, gentlemen, where do we want to begin? Keith Smith.
Yeah, so, I love these. This is our Batman and Robin Tuesday kind of thing,
Yep.
but I love it with you guys because we're kind of like family, and I just love it. So let's just start off with the family side of things. How was everybody's Easter? Did you have a good,
Lovely.
lovely, had a
Beautiful.
lot of
Lovely.
folks over?
Absolutely.
beautiful Easter. Yep, we had fiance and girlfriend over, and then just to quiet the
relaxed.
7 of us. We
I was
relaxed.
I was going to say good wine and good food, but of course Alex has to say fiance. That's important. If you
Well, Nick's
My
fiance, my girlfriend.
Oh, you're engaged?
No,
Nick's
My
his
fiance.
fiance.
Okay.
My
Nick's
fiance.
fiance.
I wasn't sure if that was news then.
I don't
No,
know.
no, no.
I was like,
No,
really?
Nick's fiance, my girlfriend,
fiance.
and then just the 7 of us.
Which was nice
Got to
because
do
she
some
was
mass.
working last year on Easter, my fiance, and the year before was the pandemic. So this is actually the first Easter where we were able to spend the whole day together. So it was really nice. We were able to we sat, we relaxed, went for a walk, kind of just went
Church,
to mass
obviously,
together.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
and so it was really nice. We were able to spend the time on Easter because it's
So,
such an
so
important
what is a traditional Earpy family Easter dinner look like?
So
Easter
it's,
meal.
it's usually either lamb or rabbit. So this Sunday it was lamb.
Ooh.
So traditionally it's we'll either do lamb or rabbit. This year
Where do you
we
get
went
your
with-
rabbit around here?
Where have you usually in the
Wegmans?
past years?
Wegmans, exactly.
Yeah.
Wegmans has good rabbits, and Stock also has rabbits.
Stock.
Jam Stock. Yeah.
So yeah, some years he'll grill the rabbit and
One
we'll put
year,
some
didn't-
alioli on
yeah, I
it.
was gonna say,
Yeah, sure.
One year
Which
we
is
did that, yeah.
delicious. This past Sunday we did. My mom did some lamb chop. Well, Dad actually on the
Yeah.
grill.
Well, I cooked them. Yeah,
did,
and I didn't,
cooked
I
the
didn't
lamb
make 'em.
chops
Just
and my
grilled
mom
them,
made
baby.
some potato gnocchi
gnocchi. Yeah, with
gnocchi
pesto
with
sauce.
pesto sauce.
We went a completely different direction. We went lasagna this year,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Which
We did
is
that
not
last- yeah, we had
kind
that
of
last year,
typical
yeah. No.
Easter dinner.
No.
Lamb would be very traditional, but we went. We were 30 people, so we went with
Yeah.
lasagna. That was kind of the
Can't go
easiest.
wrong with it.
No, absolutely.
Can't
Can't.
Lasagna.
Sounds
What did you
good.
guys have for dinner?
Spiral ham. We had mashed potatoes, mac and cheese, some baked beans. Have the in-laws in from Long Island. It was fantastic.
Oh, wow,
Trey
okay.
was well behaved. He ate his ham and his baked beans. All around A+ time, fellas.
Terrific.
Wonderful.
Terrific.
From Long Island.
Long Island.
Long Island.
Long-
Love my in-laws. Fortunate to have great in-laws. You will have great in-laws as well.
Yes.
It's a luxury. Really love my in-laws. They're watching the show, and I sincerely mean that. They know I mean that as well.
Well, Long Island folks are outstanding, so it was good to have some Long
Absolutely.
Island folks
Yeah.
on the thing. So what I kind of wanted to kick off is our businesses kind of connect a little bit, right? We talk about this all the time when you guys come on, right? Interest rates are climbing up around 5%. I think
Higher.
a little bit higher, yeah. I'm being
Mortgage rates.
mortgage rates.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you very much.
As a bond guy, we have to figure out
Yeah,
what
yeah.
interest rate we're
Mortgage
talking
rates,
about.
30-year mortgage rates are climbing, so 5% plus. I read a report the other day that they very well might see 7 before the end of the year on that end of it. So how is that mortgage rates impacting your end of the world, and what are you having a conversation with your clients about acquisition? In other words, about buying homes. What is that conversation looking like now? Like when we did the show, I think we did the show a few months ago, it was a different conversation. So what does that look like to you guys, and whoever wants to jump in?
If I can jump in, particularly for financial planning, the mortgage rate, the challenge with the mortgage rate is, as we've talked about before, when home prices go up. If the mortgage rate stays the same, that increase in home price is sort of being spread out over 30 years. When the mortgage rate goes up, that is affecting your payment for the entire 30 years. So everything is going up. You don't get to sort of amortize that increase over 30 years. That's impacting the whole length. So it really changes. It's one of those things that actually changes the picture for the entirety of the plan if you have someone who has a mortgage or is now acquiring a mortgage at these rates. So it's something that really, as we've talked about, like usually with the plan, inflation and expenses are your biggest, drivers, I would say. Mortgage rates usually, when they're low, it can be kind of a positive because the mortgage rate is fixed, the 30-year mortgage. You don't have to worry about that price going up with inflation. If you're now looking at someone acquiring a
double whammy.
mortgage at a higher rate,
It's a double whammy.
that's putting a long-term negative impact on the plan. So it's something that we have to sort of at least take into account and then decide, okay, how do we sort of run these numbers? Because usually mortgage is good debt, as we've
sure.
talked about before, right? Especially if it's low, you can you basically net the difference if you're investing in the market, versus that the higher that mortgage rate climbs, the more your return in the market has to be for that mortgage to continue to be, you can continue to sort of net the arbitrage, the difference between what you can get in the market by saving the money and taking out the mortgage.
So Xavier, are you seeing folks starting to take some money out of funds or out of your side of the balance sheet and turning it into cash to help either buy down interest rates or a little larger deposits? We're starting to see on our end of it, folks are starting to bring a little bit more cash to the table to either help buy down the
It's
interest
basically
rate.
saying, are folks pulling money out of retirement accounts for
Thank
down
you.
payments on homes?
Well, we don't see people pulling money out of retirement funds. I mean, that's a steep payment, right? Because if you take money out of, for example, your IRA or even your 401k, that's a 10% penalty. So that's an enormous amount of money you're paying the government just to do that. So we're not seeing that, right? However, I mean, without any doubt, people will start thinking about, all right, now I'm paying 5%. What's the return on my investments versus my 5% mortgage? Should I pay down more of should I put a greater down payment because I'm not getting cheap money anymore? So yeah, we are having those type of conversations as to whether it makes sense or not. In other words, when you had a 3% mortgage and you said to them, well, generating 5% return on your investments is not difficult and very achievable, then why pay more, right? And why put more down payment on your home, right? Now, if you're saying it's equal 5 and 5, the conversation changes. It's like maybe it's a good time to take some money out of the market if I have money in the market and put it into a down payment.
Yeah, where the change happened, I think, is in the taxable account. So if you have someone that's sitting there with, let's say, $50,000 in savings, whereas 2 years ago would have been a no-brainer, you're not going to use that $50,000 in savings to pay down any more of your mortgage. You're going to put it in the market and take out $50,000 extra on the mortgage. Now it's more of a question mark. Like, do I actually take that $50,000 in my savings account and put it towards my mortgage rather than putting it into the market?
But
I'm just here to make you look good.
Oh, thank you. I
That's
appreciate
why I'm
that.
here.
Thank you, Nick.
No, the only thing I would say to that is that
Because you're at that point when you might want to buy at some point, right?
Right. I wouldn't take out of my retirement to do that. And for that reason, when we're looking at clients who are thinking about buying
Well, you also
houses,
have a luxury in that you got the townhome.
yes. So
Yeah.
my fiance has a townhome, so
Yeah.
we don't have to worry about that for the time being. But I was just going to say it depends on where you're at, because one of the things we look at when we have somebody that comes in with a financial plan is making sure they do have a portion of cash set aside. And obviously, when they're younger, it's an emergency fund. When they're older, it's for situations like this, because at the point at which you have already retired and you can withdraw from your retirement accounts, that also becomes in part your emergency fund because you can withdraw from it, and there's going to be things that are liquid enough that you can do that, right? So you can be more flexible once you are retired, so we're not seeing that as much. And right now, a lot of the younger people that we've had come in just aren't looking at the market because it's so high that they're going to sit and kind of wait. That's the experience we've had with our clients. I'm not sure. I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't know if that's matching up with what you're doing, but some.
Well, that was my question to these guys.
Yeah.
Because the market is so expensive, the housing market right now.
Yeah.
Are you seeing millennials saying, "Good Lord, I'm never going to buy a house"? And then let me get into
Not I'll
the
never
equities
buy a
markets?
house. No, not that I'm never going to buy a house, because anybody who's in that situation that wants one is going to is coming to us trying to figure out how to best accomplish that and how much they have to adjust their expectations in order to do that. It's not necessarily it's high, now I can't ever buy a house, or I won't buy a house, or I have this money, instead of using it on a house, I'm going to use it on the markets. Because most of the time, a house isn't always a financial decision, right?
Yeah.
So it's an emotional decision. You know, you have one kid, and you're pregnant with another, and you want to get a bigger house. You can't just be like, well, I had this 10,000, now the market's expensive, so I'm just going to put it in equities. It's just a matter of like, okay, what can I get from my house? How can I find something different? It's much more stressful. Obviously, it's a much different time. They should talk to a trusted advisor. But
You know one?
yeah, I know one. Yeah,
And to be honest, if
I know the one
anything-
that's going to get my call.
If anything, the impetus to have a house is slightly stronger because, I mean, millennials, like we look ahead and we see the writing on the wall in terms of rent prices.
That's where I
Right,
wanted to go
right.
with that, right? So the lead in on this is exactly as Jerry just outlined. So are you starting to see, and I think the answer is maybe no, right? Are you starting to see folks saying, I'm not going to buy, but I'm going to put the money in the market? Or has that conversation started yet? Is that panic kind of hit in yet?
You know,
It's
there's so
always
many.
about balance. It's not about. I mean, not to. Sorry, do you want to go?
No, go ahead. Go
No,
ahead.
I was going to say
I'll
it's more
follow.
about balance, right? Because the situation you outlined, I understand it makes sense, but at the same time, as financial advisors and people that come to us for a financial plan, they're not like it's all or nothing. They're going to just sort of like, where do you find the proper balance between those two? And the problem is, it's not as easy as it may have been before, but those who are renting are going to want to stop renting no matter what. So even if it means that they're not going to get the house that they want. It was interesting because I wanted to bring this up with you on one day. I had read an article in Fidelity where they were somebody was calling it the TV effect, that millennials, they want too much from their first home because they watch shows like DIY and all these other networks where, you move into the house and it's already got, all the amenities that you could possibly want, the 3-car garage and everything, and they're like, I can't live without that.
Well, the opposite is they think they can fix them themselves, right?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
whole different conversation. I'll
Right,
let you finish.
but right. So I guess the point is that now it's a matter of like, do I have to wait longer to get that home because I need to build up more, more cash, more cash, whatever it is. So that is the conversation we're having. We're not saying that they're not coming to us saying, if I already have a home, I'm going to have to stay here for another like 20 years. It's more of we were looking to move. If we can't afford it right now, then we will have to save more in the future. And how do we best accomplish that while obviously making the money work for us? So it's a give and take. It's not an all or nothing.
Yeah, so the balance is starting to creep in a little bit here. It's slowly. I just took a look at the last 24 hours in the car footprint, how many new active homes that came on. It's an interesting number. Last 24 hours, since the show yesterday to today, 28 homes came on the market. 20 of them are in the coming soon column, which we don't want to go down that whole rabbit hole. But there's 20 of them in coming soon, so that means these
So
are
they're
homes.
not for sale now.
They're not for sale now. These are homes that will become active somewhere between now and the next 14 days. That's how the rule is set up, right?
Interesting.
So these are things real estate agents can see. So what's happening right now is I'm looking at this because I have a couple of nicks that are trying to buy, millennials are trying to buy a first-time home. So I'm looking at this, right? So we know it's coming on. And in order to really compete these days, you're going to have to bring some cash to the table.
Right.
And then that's where I was interested on what kind of phone calls you guys are getting, saying, okay, look, I want to put another X thousands of dollars in because I can buy that 5 down to 4 or 4.5% mortgage. Does it make sense, Mr. Trusted Advisor, for me to do that or just to take the 5% and then pay an extra couple $100 a month to my mortgage? So how do I answer that question?
So, I mean, what I was going to say also before was buying a house isn't a one-factor decision. It's not based on interest rates. It's not based on home values. It's based on among other factors, right? And as a matter of fact, I mean, this morning, if you notice, the U.S. construction went up the highest since 2006, right? And if you look at charts, I mean, the housing has been doing very, very well. If you go back to
It's still behind Xavier.
True, but if you go back to 1999 to 2006, mortgage rates were probably around 8%, dropping down to about 6%, and you had an enormous rise there all the way till 2006, which was the highest, right, as far as U.S. home construction. And we're not there yet, but we're getting close. I mean, this number says we're almost there. So as far as how many construction, I mean, I think that they're looking at 1.8 million. But
Which is a huge number, by the way.
yeah, no, it is a huge number, yeah. So my point is that obviously the market little by little begins to catch up to demand. And the demand is still very high, basically because, as Alex mentioned before, the rents are very high, right? You had enormous amount of cash come into, right, during the pandemic. And there are millennials sitting there and saying, I got all this cash. What do I do with it? First, they put it into the stock market, right? We saw that in 2020, at the latter end of 2020. And now they're sitting there and saying, what do I do with all this extra cash that I have? So millennials are sitting there saying,
And less credit card debt.
exactly. I've got the money, rents are high, yes, home prices are high, but what am I waiting for? Am I waiting for rates to get higher? Am I waiting for homes to go higher? Because in the end, if the demand is still large, I mean, if it used to be that you had 10 people looking to buy one house, and now you're down to 5 people looking to buy one house, yeah, that's a reduction of, 50%. But it's still 5 people.
Still 5.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, that means there's still a bidding war.
And I was trying to explain that. I actually, a couple of Fridays ago, brought a toy, one of these balance toys, and I was trying to explain that with that thing. So what's happening is the inventory is moving up incrementally, really, anemically, really. But what's happening is the buyer pool is reducing, right? So
For now.
For now, for this. But as you guys were chatting, one of the reasons I love doing this conversation, Dad and I are kind of the same age group, but you guys are the millennials. Last year, you were 47%, almost 50% of all the total sales in the United States for real estate. It will, this year, next year, the next 12 to 24, it will go way past 50%. The other largest pool is Dad and I, right? And guess what we're all looking for?
The same thing.
That's the
Exactly
issue,
the
it's the
same
same
thing.
house.
Except
The
Dad
same.
and except Xavier and Keith have a better cash position because they have a current piece of property that they can sell to leverage as a down payment
Yeah.
on a house.
And they're downsizing. In other words, we've got this big house, right? And when you say everybody's gone, we're
Well, that's what I mean.
We're downsizing, looking for their starter home is our downsize home.
Right.
That's
So
exactly
yes,
right. So the buyer pool for the same product is very large. We have the largest buying profile ever. Right. The millennial outpaces us boomers by multiple times on that end of it. But it's an interesting point. It's a conversation we're coaching young buyers with, because I like to think the term we really coach and mentor buyers and sellers more than sell and list and stuff like that. 100% right. Let's take a look at the rents. They're doubling. They're projecting 12% this year in our marketplace, right? So, even if you're at 5 or 6% mortgage, I still stand by that's a hedge against inflation.
Well,
Sure.
we talked about this, Alex. You have indicated in the studio that you're thinking seriously about buying something.
What does you have to, you sit there and this is just me, my financial mind spinning of saying, well, if rates are going to be higher and home prices are going to be higher 1 year, 2 years from now, do you think about it now rather than risk having to pay more
Now
later?
is always better than later. It's always better
You know,
than later.
especially when you face, I mean, granted, I'm in a fortunate position that I'm not facing rent increases now, right? But
Wow.
particularly if you were,
thought about
you're sitting there.
Don't take that for
saying,
granted.
Yeah, don't take that for
Hey,
granted.
Dad, let's negotiate. 3%.
Yeah, I
I got you covered.
Exactly, but even when you looked at that, I mean, if rent prices are increasing, which we know they are,
Yeah.
and we know they're going to only increase more, you sit there and say, do I want to pay a higher interest rate, even though it's, I mean, to a landlord, which is purely in his rent, and I achieve no equity from this, or do I at least pay, yeah, I'm paying a higher interest rate for the home, but at least I'm building equity in it, at least I'm participating in some kind of upside. On the rental side, you participate in zero upside. If the property you're renting doubles in value, guess what? You get nothing. If anything, your rent goes higher because the landlord says, wow, this property is twice as valuable as it was before, you better pay me some more to continue renting it.
So the housing market, much like your guys' market, right? Like the street is in this flexing point. It's changing. And Yona, my wife and I were talking about this morning, right? We've been in this game, right, 3.5 decades. It's always changing. There's always some ebb. There's always some flow. The trick is to understand it and help communicate it to others. But there's an interesting number. I take a look at a 7-day snapshot in our region. I do it every morning. I'm starting to see price changes happen. It's the first time I've seen that of a substantial amount. Like usually it's in the week 1 or 2 or 4. There's 28 in the last. So what that's telling me,
You're saying price
Wait,
adjustments?
price adjustment.
Downward?
A house
Downward.
changed,
Okay.
went down in
Listing price goes down.
Goes down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's
Okay.
happening is the selling market is lagging a little bit what's really happening out there in the big market because 2 weeks ago, a month ago, I'm having a conversation with Dad to sell his house. By the way, you guys got to find a new place to live. with Dad and Mom. 'cause
I'm sad,
We
but-
can get them.
Yeah, you're golden, Nicholas.
Yeah, stop bragging.
You're golden, Nicholas.
But, a month ago, the market was maybe this number. Now it's that number, and it's very important to price it right. And that's why you're seeing this. And when you take a dig into these 28 homes, you'll see they've been on the market for like 12 days. I can't believe I'm even saying this. 12 days,
Wow.
14 days. And that means I'm overpriced
Yep.
Yeah.
in this market. So I'm going to start tracking that. That's something that's new. And I
Wow.
think the market is starting to balance itself a
Because
little
it's,
bit.
remember, that you have to remember that price is an attempt of the market to find the equilibrium between supply and demand. So what happens? We had very low supply, very high demand, price shoots up. New sellers go into this market saying, well, I want to capture that high price. But as they enter,
This is what we talked about
right,
yesterday,
they
Junior.
begin to realize, all right, the equilibrium is no longer at this price. Now, the equilibrium may still be at a high price, but
So
it
that's
may
the
not be the price
that's-
you thought it was.
So that's the reason I started the conversation with this 5, 6, or wherever we're going to go, because that's balancing the market
Of
a
course.
little bit.
Well, the buyers are saying enough already. The buyers are saying this is getting out of control, and they're taking a step back, and then you're seeing the price adjustment. It's the buyers with the leverage that determine the price. Now, what I'm very curious to see is this fall, and then with the data science school about to open, how this reverts back to a seller, to the giving more leverage to the sellers. Let's cut to the chase. The sellers have tremendous leverage right now. They have tremendous leverage. They'll lose a little bit of leverage as more inventory comes on the market as the days get warmer, which is what's happening, is what he identified. But this fall, we've got more students coming to UVA, more staff hired by UVA, and we're very close to this data science school opening, which is another pool of employees and students in this market and potential hirees staying in this market at six-figure jobs.
I want to jump in here on that.
Please.
I had a phone call yesterday from a nurse that's getting hired at UVA, and I was really shocked. She said, look, I'm coming to UVA, I just got hired. I'm looking for a house in Charlottesville for under $300,000.
Not going to happen.
And I said, did anybody at HR tell you what the housing situation is here? And she went, no. I said, okay, well, let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
This is where we're at. And literally the words out of her mouth was, oh my God, I think I made a mistake.
Of course.
And that's to your point.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see.
This is going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
It was an
Well,
interesting
it's interesting.
conversation.
I guess, like everything else, it depends where you come from, because we had a conversation with somebody, the same thing, only it was the opposite, because they came from the tri-state area.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And they said, wow, this is, I mean, granted, they said, this is more expensive than I thought, but certainly much more affordable than where they come from.
To Jerry's
So-
comment all the time, they come in with a pocket full of cash.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I have clients from Northern Virginia. I still can't find them homes.
Yeah.
Right at the 8 to 1 million range, I still can't find them homes to buy. It's just,
And,
it's just not
and
there.
get ready for this. When the data science school opens, it will be a school that is unmatched with level of pedigree and credibility. And these students are going to matriculate out of the data science school. And I already know firms are setting up shop in this area
to
to
grab
grab the talent from the school and to set up a satellite office or a headquarters right next to the data science school. And these students are going to come out with fantastic degrees, six-figure jobs, stay in the market, and need housing to live.
They're going to be a six-figure job, and the corporation is going to say, here's a $50,000 sign-on bonus. Use that as a down payment to buy a house.
I've been saying this for 18 months. This is going to get way worse before it gets better. Way worse.
And again,
So that's an argument to, fine, sir, get in the market now, because it's not, it's just, we may not see double-digit appreciation like we did the last 2 years, but we will see, 3 to 6% appreciation year over year. It will happen.
I would not be surprised if you see a larger percentage than that.
I'm trying to be a bit conservative here.
Yeah,
but-
we'll see.
And it's the double whammy of the appreciation and the interest rate, and the mortgage rate. Because
And it's
appreciation at a low mortgage rate, you can at least financially, it may make it difficult for you to get in now, but you can at least then appreciate, okay, yes, my appreciation, the extra that I'm paying is being spread out over 30 years. At a higher mortgage rate, you can't say that anymore. I mean, that increase in the mortgage rate is applied to every payment
Yeah,
over
but
30
the
years.
principles are the same still, right? I mean,
yes.
it's, and look, what could happen is, Scott Morris is predicting this. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but, maybe the end of 2023, there might be an adjustment, maybe mortgage rates might drop down by 2 points and you refi, right? But still get in the game.
Yeah, there's always, I mean, that's the beauty. That's the beauty
know a
of
couple of
that,
houses
is
that
that you
come on the
can always negotiate your mortgage rate lower later
Then
on.
the coming soon.
Let me see. How many
We can refi it later
You
on.
can refi, exactly.
To a better rate.
Yeah.
You
Danny
tell me.
O'Day, hello.
You tell me
Welcome
one,
to the
then you-
program. Carter Hoyer has given us some props and saying it's a fantastic show. Bill McChenzie, welcome to the program. The guest for tomorrow, Christy Beck, watching the program. Christy Lynn Beck, hello. Thank you kindly for joining us. Ness Realty, Logan Foster, Real Estate 3, Christie's, all on the program right now. Some folks at CBRE watching the program as we speak. So gentlemen, let's talk about this. The advice that you give to clients about housing, either climbing the ladder, downsizing the ladder, investing into second properties or investment properties. Are these conversations coming up? If so, give us some insight into those combos.
In terms of investment properties, usually we're not working with clients that are looking at that right now, only because the thing to always keep in mind with investment property, of course, is you're not talking a liquid investment, right? So if your financial plan involves drawing down some of the principal, you can't do that with an investment property, right? Usually you have to be at a level of wealth where you can put into an investment property, say, I have no intention of needing this principal, this $1 million that I'm putting into this property, and I'll happily take the rent that I will get from it, but I do not need to draw down this principal. Unless you're at that phase, you're probably still looking at, from an investment standpoint, the market. I mean, maybe you'll have some real estate in terms of the more liquid real estate that you can get via the market, REITs and stuff like that. Maybe you'd be looking at that a little bit, but you're not, unless you hit a certain threshold of wealth, you're not going to be looking at investment property to fund your retirement, because you may need, especially with inflation where it is, you may need to draw down some principal
Really?
at some point.
You really think so?
I mean, the key is always whether you need to draw principal. In other words, if you can sit there and say, my wealth is
He's
two,
talking
three-
about how liquid this
yeah,
investment
exactly. If you
is.
sit there and say, my wealth is 2-3 million, right, and if I generate 5% on this, cash income-wise, I'm set for the rest of my life. You could put it all in real estate, right, because you only need to live on the
Well,
cash. If you're sitting there, I have $1 million, and my financial plan says I'm going to need to draw down the principal as well as cash flow, much more difficult, because you can't sell a piece of a $1 million property.
Sure.
So that it's where that threshold is of net wealth. If your net wealth crosses a region where you say at X percent rent or X percent income, I never need to touch principal, then you're good.
So I follow and I track that. We have one investment property and we're trying to get some more, to be frank with you. Because I think rents will increase faster than appreciation on sale. I really do. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but just looking at it from a business
Depends on
model.
who you are.
Depends on what you're, I mean,
Yeah.
if all you want is cash flow, then you'll take the rent over the appreciation.
Correct. But my thinking on that is if I believe I'm at 3 to 6%. And the reason why I know this is kind of where we're tracking. A lot of folks in my industry, that's what they're doing, right? So when the pros are starting to buy property, that's when you should be buying property on that end of it. I got 20 coming soon, hey buddy.
No, I mean, you see it all the time, right? The very wealthy, how many times you read about a hedge fund guy who made his millions in hedge fund, and then he closes down the hedge fund years later. What does he do? What do they all do? They go buy rental, they go buy property and rent it, because they're sitting there saying, all I want for the rest of my life is cash flow, because I have the wealth to generate enough cash flow to live on. The question is where the line becomes.
No, I was just going to say that to
Say hi to beautiful fiance. Who's watching.
Oh, hi, beautiful fiance. Did she say something about me? Because she threatened to.
She gave you some props.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But I knew you wouldn't read it.
She gave you some props.
I knew what she
It
said,
was the
too.
heart. It was the heart. Like
That's just the heart? Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Elizabeth, we love you here.
Next month. 1 month from now.
Less.
Really?
I thought it was less than 30 days.
Yes, less than 30
less
days.
than 30
Okay.
days
Really?
now.
I got the
14,
timer in my head.
Yeah, I know you
Last
had
week
it.
was 30 days.
Yes, last week was 30 days.
Yeah.
So now we're on crunch time.
You look great,
I
too.
didn't see an invite in my mailbox.
You must not have gotten it. I'm sorry. You're supposed to come in an airplane or a helicopter. We're supposed to drop it with all these flowers and balloons and everything.
Don't invite yourself to the man's wedding, Keith.
Just did, okay?
Well, yeah. You can show up if you want.
Thank you.
There won't be anything to eat, but
What's
that's.
that? They made a movie about that, didn't it? With Wedding
He
Crashers?
will
Wedding
crash your
crashers.
wedding.
Yeah,
so
I
be
know.
careful.
I don't know. Well, yeah. Well, listen. If he can find it without me saying anything, then he can come. But-
Where's your cell phone? I'm going to put.
yeah. Right. Yeah.
You'd be surprised what I can do. So.
No. I
sorry.
believe
She
me.
said less than 1 month, honey.
Yep, less than 1 month. I know. Believe me, we're counting the. We're just sort of like, oh man, counting the days. She's got these little wood blocks that we used to.
Congratulations, by the
Thank you. She just moves them for the day count. It's kind of
isn't
fun.
that
Yeah.
cute?
All right, finish your thought there.
What were you
Please.
talking about?
Smith interrupted me.
Yeah, I know. I was like,
The ADD's
I
kicking
got
in over
switched
there.
back into
Investment
marriage and
property
back.
is what we were
Oh
talking
no,
about.
I was just jumping back on Alex his point, because I remember when we were studying financial plans, one of the things they look at is your net worth is so like not all clients are the same in the sense that depending on your net worth too, you're going to have a different arrangement of what you invest in, and it turns out that at the 10 million plus mark of net worth, you do see a portion of people who are invested in investment properties. Below that, again, to Alex's point,
drops.
it gets more difficult because it's. I mean, listen, it also depends on the person, because we've had clients that come in and they don't spend anything whatsoever. They have the leanest lifestyle because that's what makes them happy, and they can live off Social Security, which seems impossible.
But people
Right,
do- no, some
but there
people
are
do it.
some people that can literally just live off their, and they're well-to-do, but they just live. They can live off their Social Security because they want the lean lifestyle because that's what makes them happy.
Well, let me give you present this.
Okay.
We're in an inflationary time. We got CPI, last week at 8.5?
Yeah, and PPI is at 11, so
11.2.
CPI is probably
so it's
going
gonna
up.
go higher.
It's going to go higher. So you get investment property. You had this before inflation went bananas. You locked in a rate at 4%. Your rents are escalating anywhere from 7 to 12% every year. Your commercial values are appreciating anywhere from 7 to 15% a year. So your rate's fixed, your rents are escalating, your appreciation's escalating, and then you have the tax shelter of the property itself. The investment property offers ample vehicles to shelter some money, grow revenue monthly, get the back end appreciation when you go sell, and if you do it the right way, you're getting a rate that's well below inflation. Now, if you're getting a rate now, you're in a stickier position because that's going to be some floating debt tied to prime. But those that got the rate and locked in before COVID and this inflation hit, really are in a positive spot here.
No, absolutely. I mean, there's no arguing with the viability of real estate as an investment long term. Long term, it remains one of the most powerful investment tools. The challenge is always where the threshold is, where really the question is, will you need the principal?
We need
Well,
to
That's really the
Well, and
will you need
this
the
is
cash?
the second thing, right? I mean, it's always great to paint rosy pictures of everything that's advantageous about real estate properties, right?
I just took a note with exactly what you're going to say.
No, but I mean, so the one thing you have to think about also is that there's a thing called being able to reinvest in sectors that are not doing well, right? In other words, I can sit here and literally tell you guys that I can put you in an investment that's going to generate 10%, right? And it has basically another 10% income, and it has another 10% upcome, right? So are you willing to put all your money into that particular investment? The answer is probably no, right? So the idea here is that the important thing about investments is to be able to diversify those investments, because some are going, as Alex said, some aren't very liquid, but others create enormous opportunities. When that opportunity hits all the way, it gets to a peak, and you'll see, I mean, real estate, you know this, right, has gone up and it has come down. Has gone up and it's come down. If you look, especially look at before 2006, it was a roller coaster, right? And then basically from 99 to 2006, it went up, then it went down. So there are times out there where decades where real estate did nothing, absolutely nothing, right?
Flat.
And then all of a sudden it takes off. Well, during that time, if you own real estate, are you going to sell so that you can buy something else that looks more attractive? Very difficult to do. So diversification is very important. Having a piece of real estate, if you have the ability to do that, is terrific, and it's a wonderful investment. But
And this is all a great conversation, but 90% of the people, we're just trying to get them a home to live in.
Well, absolutely.
That's, yep.
No, and that's what's
That's
important.
the struggle, right? You know, and you know, we talked inflation, and you know, it's going to go, and I think the two of us remember the '80s all too well, when inflation was there, and some of the cuts that you needed to make in the first half of the for the '80s. But you know, I still believe even at a 5% or 6%, it's the best hedge against inflation. Most people buy a home because they're motivated, because they have to, right? Now, maybe the people that are not motivated, that don't have to, they kind of sit tight in the market, kind of like yourself, right? I don't really have to do anything until we renegotiate your lease there, and then you might have to do it.
Then I might have to.
Might have to do it on that end of it, and you know, I've got a 21-year spreadsheet, to Dad's point, that I've been tracking year over year of all the costs in our regions. In other words, how what's pricing of housing has done, and includes time of great unpleasantness. And I say this on the show more than once. The average is 5.5%. So if you sat in that house for 20 years, you made year over year, 5.5%.
So Keith, I mean, so the important thing there is, I always tell
It's
people,
cumulative.
when it
That's-
comes, so when it comes to,
Compound.
Thank you, compound.
when it comes to buying a house, right, someplace you're going to live, I think that trumps just about everything, because it is going to be your home. And as you said, I mean, instead of me paying rent and not getting any equity out of it, if you can afford to buy a home, that's the first step. But thereafter, you have to think of other options. You really have to think about other ways that you go, what else am I going to do with income that I have, savings that I have, as opposed to just put it again in real estate. In other words, you don't want to put everything in one. That's your house is the biggest investment. Thank God in this case for mortgages. Somebody's lending you to invest, right? At very cheap
It's amazing.
rates.
Yeah.
You go to a brokerage house and ask them to lend you $300,000 to invest, and let's say, first of all, you have to have some collateral. What's your collateral? And second of all, that rate's not going to be anywhere close to
talking
mortgage
margin.
rate. Yeah, margin,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah.
So the answer is that's a great opportunity to invest in something that's real estate, right? And it becomes your home. And then after that, you really have to begin to think about other investments because it's the only way to get ahead is to be able to diversify that portfolio.
So we were talking.
It's a good take right there.
We were talking 10 million, 1 million, right? One of the reasons I love working with you guys and communicating with you guys is you help the folks that don't have that amount,
Yes.
right? And I
That's
raise
the
my
goal.
hand, and I'm one of your clients, right? Because we lost everything we had in the time of great unpleasantness, and we built ourselves back up with a small nest egg, and so I just don't want folks who are listening to this think, well, I don't have that kind of money.
No, exactly.
No, I'm serious.
No.
That you guys can help folks. If you're at zero, this is the
Do
right
what?
time to have this
Absolutely.
conversation. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me, I want you to help me. I want you to help me to plan for down 10, 20 years down the road. What's my first step?
The first step is just come in and talk to us. That's really, it's getting a notion of what are your goals, right? What's the time frame you're looking at? What do we need to do to start? I mean, we've worked with people starting budget up, like come in and say, here's how much I make a month, here's what my expenses are, how much can I save? And literally going line item. Some people will come in and be like, I don't even know, here's my credit card bill, I don't even know how to divide this up, what's grocery, what counts as groceries, what's non-discretionary, what's discretionary expenses, what's the difference between that, how much can I even save? And so we'll sit down, sometimes work with them line item, we figure it out, we figure out a way to get we have people that do periodic plans to their retirement where $35 a month, because that's all they can afford. It's like, I can only do $35 a month, and we at least put that into a Roth, and we've got clients that literally every month, $35 a month to the Roth IRA, $100 a month to the
great.
Roth IRA. Just starting small,
Yeah.
and you will be stunned how quickly it grows. And before you know it, 3 years have passed, and you're sitting there with a nest egg, and it's like $4,000 or $5,000.
I was just going to say it's kind of funny because you talk about that, right? About the people that come in with zero. And one of the things I always thought bizarre about some of the other businesses in our area is that when you have an asset minimum requirement, you're basically saying, unless you have healthy financial habits to begin with, we're not going to take you, despite the fact that that's in some ways our job is to help you develop healthy financial habits so that you can get to the point where you have enough to that you could have had. So I guess the whole point is that you have to start. I mean, everyone starts at zero at some point, right? When you're born, you come in with nothing. Maybe your parents have some stuff and they're willing to give it to you, whatever. But you're born into this world with nothing. You have to build it up no matter what from scratch. You come in to a financial advisor. The idea is to help you get to the point where, hey, you be able to have a retirement, you be able to save effectively, you be able to budget, and you know what? People will feel more comfortable, safer, more confident in their future, and it's going to lead to a better life overall. That's why we're in this business. To your point, I know we talk about the 10 million, but you were right. The people that come in with zero and they say, hey, sometimes they're in great shape and they just need somebody to tell them, you're in great shape, you're doing fine.
So it's the same advice I'm giving. buy a house.
Yeah.
Get into it. You have $35 a month, get into
Save it.
Yeah.
Save it, get into it. It's interesting, this inflation thing has been on our radar for quite some time, right? We knew, everybody at this table knew that this was coming, right? And I think it's going to continue to get a little worse.
I'm hoping it's peaked.
You could hope in one hand.
Yeah.
You don't think
What do
it's
you do in the
peaked,
other
Xavier?
hand?
I'm not going to say it on the air.
I think the world.
You don't think that core data suggested peak in March?
So, and I know, I'm not
go,
sure if you
you
want to
go,
go
you
there.
go, you go.
So the issue is when you say peak, yeah, maybe we're seeing kind of the peak in a sense very high, but I think we're going to have inflation for a longer period of
So
time.
peak and plateau.
Yeah, because the world's changed. I mean, literally the pandemic, and I think this war in Ukraine has changed the way countries think about what they need to produce. And I think more and more countries are thinking now internally saying, we can no longer depend on others to produce what we need, and that is going to be costly.
I was on the phone on Sunday wishing my sister-in-law in Vienna, Austria, happy Easter. Her electric bill is 4 times higher than it was 30 days ago.
Yeah.
Wait till we see what this
Because it is-
fertilizer crisis is going to do to like rice and wheat
Oh,
and
yeah.
some of the goods that
Everything.
we need.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
Europe,
Ukraine
that's-
is breadbasket of Europe, which means if
exactly.
Europe goes elsewhere to buy their grain, pushes the prices up everywhere else.
and fertilizer is so expensive right now. Asian countries aren't predicting or producing the rice that they once did.
that's right.
And rice is 80%
Rice is their
of the
wheat.
world's food.
Oh, yes, no, rice is the number one.
But forget about the production side of it. They can't move it around, right? You can't get it logistics.
No.
You can't get it from point A to point. I
point
can
B.
produce all the rice in the world, but if I can't send it to wherever, I can't do that. It's interesting. Yona and I last month did something different. It was the month of March. What we did is we actually recorded in a ledger every one of our spendings that we're doing. And much to the point about the $35 a month, there were certain things that we were just automatically paying that we never used. I had a, I won't use the name, but a local fitness facility. I was paying X amount of dollars a month that I never went to, right? And I literally never went to it. And I forgot that this was coming out because we never really looked
You
at
never
it
go one by
because we
one.
were so busy doing all these different things. And from my perspective and my family's perspective, this inflation jump made us look at it.
Yeah.
And what you'll be seeing is more money going into our accounts because we're now shutting down some of these accounts. Like, we had Disney. We never watched Disney. I got it for The Mandalorian. I never watched it again. Right?
But once it's on a recurring
Yeah,
cycle.
it's on a returning cycle, and it was like, whatever it is, $15 a month. But it was a substantial amount of money that we just said, okay, we've cut all these things that we don't do.
So,
out.
so think about everybody else that is doing very similar things. I mean, families are sitting back and saying, okay, we need to budget because we were spending X amount on this and that, and we can no longer afford this and that, right? So project that forward for the next 12 to 24 months, and I think the global economies are going to be challenged.
But to go back to the 10 million, 2 million, 1 million, I can walk in and say, guys, help me budget. And you guys will do
sure.
it, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
For nothing.
For
free.
nothing, basically.
For a cup of coffee.
Yep. Not even a cup of
Actually,
coffee.
no,
We give the coffee.
we give the coffee.
provide the cup of coffee. We've got the
people
coffee.
come into the office.
So
say
if
you want
you
some
are
coffee.
worried about this, sit down with these guys and help them build a budget. It's the
That's
best.
what it's about.
It's
And
the
it's-
best free advice you'll ever get.
It is.
Comments coming in,
It is.
guys. So Kevin Yancey, King of Waynesboro, welcome to the show. He says, late to the party, good morning, love the show. He said this, and you guys cannot, I'm going to stipulate this for the fellas, they cannot talk specific stocks.
We cannot
Right.
give
advice.
investment tips.
Yeah, okay. He said he got burned by the market 3 times in his life. And he started buying metals.
Oh, like precious metals?
Bad idea, good idea, he wants to know. More questions like this coming in.
Again, precious metals, like every other asset class, right? It can be part of a diversified portfolio. We would not recommend that you put all your eggs in the precious metal basket because those will vacillate. Sometimes they will perform as expected, sometimes not so much.
Yeah, I mean, precious metals do well during inflationary periods, right? But again, it's as Alex said, when you create a portfolio, a diversified portfolio, you want to hedge certain things, and you may want to buy investments that will hedge inflation. In other words, that, I mean, during previous to the last 2 years, inflation was so low. I mean, but you still had a piece in there that said, just in case inflation comes back, I want a piece of my portfolio protecting me, right? And those didn't do very well. Everything else did, and now it's the reverse. But again, if you put everything in one basket, yeah, I mean, there's a chance that if you do it at the wrong time, you get burnt.
I'm living experience of that, right? I always had my money in dirt. And then 2008, 9, and 10 came. I went, oops. So I will never make that mistake again. I will always diversify and all that kind of great stuff. So diversity is king.
Kelsey Long, crypto, Bitcoin in particular, was seen as a hedge against inflation, but it seems to be quite the opposite right now and has aligned itself, it seems, with the NASDAQ. What's up with crypto?
Crypto is just, it's such
But you guys get that a
a
lot,
new
don't you?
volatile. Yeah, we did that. We got a lot of crypto in 2011 when it went up a lot. And then from 2012 to 2018 when Bitcoin went down, we didn't get too
Below
many
40
questions.
now.
We didn't get too many questions then. Crypto is just extremely volatile, and there's still a lot of speculation in crypto. And what I mean by that is a lot of people still buy crypto not because of its underlying value, but people buy crypto because they think crypto will go up, which means you have the risk there that people sell crypto not because suddenly the technology doesn't work or suddenly they sell crypto because they think other people are selling crypto. So anything where there's a speculative element, it doesn't mean you can't invest in it all, but it's still very early to sit there and say that you should be putting a large percent in crypto because there's just very much still a volatile speculation element
It's
to
like
it.
orange juice,
Yeah.
right? It's a commodity, right?
It is.
Yeah.
How about gold, Alex? Take on gold. You've touched on it briefly.
Gold. So gold is a little less
Stable.
speculative than crypto because there's an actual physical asset there. There's just an actual physical supply and demand. Similar scenario, however, in the sense of gold can be volatile. There are times when it's a good hedge against inflation. There are times when it doesn't perform as you would have expected against inflation. It can be part, but again, you don't want it to be too significant a piece of your portfolio because to get into gold, there's only two ways. Either physical, where you pay a very large premium up front. Usually you're talking like 35%. So basically gold has to go up 35% for your physical gold to break even, or you're going to pay like a fund to sort of invest in gold mining or gold stocks, and particularly if it's gold itself, there's a cost of about 1% a year to keep rolling that over. So if your gold hedge doesn't pay off, in other words, if you buy gold, you think it's going to go up this year, and it doesn't go up this year, it stays flat, you lose 1% a year every time you're waiting for that gold to pay off. So you don't want that to be too significant a part of your portfolio.
That's
if
a
you want to
holding
treat it
cost.
like, it's a holding cost. If you want to treat it like insurance, like, okay, I put 1% in gold, I'm willing to lose 1% a year on it because I want to insure against an inflation spike, and I think gold will do well, fine, but you don't want that to be like, oh yeah, this is my big investment, because there's either a holding cost or a big premium to get into gold.
Paul Hendricks commenting, fantastic money manager and a hell of a double squash player. Paul, I'm going to give you some props. Maybe one of the best double squash players on the East Coast, Paul Hendricks. He says in general, metals have fairly high volatility and should be much smaller positions in your portfolio. Paul Hendricks offering that perspective. More coming in, fast and furious on the show. What are y'all's takes on index funds with volatility like this in today's market?
So we're talking about. so
Like
I'm not sure
S&P
if-
500 index.
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
Russell
we're talking
2000.
about index funds that track specific indices like the S&P 500, the Russell 3000. Those are fantastic investments, I think. And that's what you want to take a look at. In other words, if you want a diversified portfolio, those are great ways to do that because you're buying an index, you're not buying specific stocks. And if the whole market does well, then you can ride that market. And in addition, if you want to play around in the market and say, gee, growth did very well last year, but I think value is going to do better this year, then you can buy a growth index, a value index. You can swap them. You can trade a
adjust
little
the
bit. You can
percentages.
adjust the percentages. And that's just a great way, really, over time to basically sell something that's done very well, buy something that hasn't done very well, and that asset allocation makes you even more money. So I think those are great instruments.
The follow-up question, this is from Spencer. What's the mentality with markets this volatile and uncertain, especially with this war on the other side of the world? How should your investing mentality change? It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's you want to take
It's more, again, for us, it usually comes down to percentages, so you may want to become a little more defensive. If you're very worried, by defensive, what I mean is, okay, what typically does better if you end up with a struggling economy or the war affecting? defensive stocks. So you're going to be the ones that are less cyclical, your Johnson & Johnson's, your Coca-Cola's, your utilities, the boring kind of stuff, right? That's who usually sort of holds steady in tougher times. So maybe you shift a percent. Again, you never get fully out of anything because there's no crystal ball, right? You can never say, oh, I'm going to go completely out of growth because growth is going to stink because the economy might go into recession. No, you just adjust your percentages. You say, I'm a little worried. Maybe I sell a little bit of growth, put a little bit into defensive stocks so that if defensive stocks do well and growth does poorly, now I can rebalance back. Now I sell some and go there.
Yeah, and the only other thing I was going to say is when things are tough out globally, I tell people I like to stay closer to home. In other words, I'd rather invest in America at this point in time than globally, and I think globally is important overall. But in these situations, it's always better, and I always tell people, you pay for your products in dollars. So I want to bet on local, I want to bet on U.S., and I want to bet on the dollar because that's what you're paying. If you're investing globally and that stock market does well, but the dollar does very well, you've lost money, right? So that's the only thing is when things look tough globally, just stay home.
Well said. Tech has been hammered of late. Do you guys see a rebound in the near future? Are you still, with rising rates, concerned about tech?
So short-term or long-term? Because again, long-term tech always has potential because that's what's going to spur. That's usually what spurs economic growth.
Let's call it the next year.
Next year might still struggle, I think, tech with what is going on, particularly in times of uncertainty.
Like Alex said, I mean, if you already had a diversified portfolio and you saw that one of your investments is down 20% and the other one, because it's in value, is up 3%, there's no reason why you can't say right now, let me get back to where I was a year ago, and you sell a little bit of value, buy a little tech. It still may go down more, but you just bought something
At a
lower price
And just sit.
and you sold something.
Yeah.
And that's
Sit
it.
tight.
Just
Yeah.
exactly.
Sit tight.
Exactly.
Well, especially when we're going in with the financial plan, we're building someone's portfolio, we're advising people that you're looking generally 10 to 20 year horizons.
Now, someone on the upper age of the spectrum.
Well, even
Or
Keith,
someone in the-
he
You
should
mean like
be,
Keith?
yeah, I was going to say, he should still have a good number of years left
you're
before he'll
upper
have
age
to
of the
start.
spectrum-
I was about to say, like, I was
If
talking
you're
about
upper
him.
age of the spectrum, you're going to have less tech anyway
Yeah.
in your portfolio.
Yeah.
Your
That's
portfolio
right.
should be more conservative over time.
That's what I was doing.
Yeah, look, for me, it's very simple. Here's the money, guys. Goodbye. See you later. Right? Do what you
What's your favorite
got.
kind of client?
That's
Well,
true.
well, I have to admit though, we've actually. I remember one of the
It's my
first
favorite kind.
clients that Alex and I had discussed, and he said, if we just let you guys take care of it, will you just do that for us? And we said, of course, we'll take care of it for you, but we're going to make sure that we're going to do our best to make sure you come in and talk to us because you need to know what you're invested in. We don't, we're not the type of advisors that are just going to be like, see you later, Charlie. Thanks for the money. It's a conversation, and I think it's important for people to be educated and informed on the things that they're investing in because there's a reason for it.
I learned this decades ago. You hire somebody who's really good at what they do and kind of stay the heck out of their way.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't insert yourself every once in a while. Maybe sometimes I do it too much, but
you learn.
Or be educated.
But the reality of it is, find a trusted, it's a terminology, trusted advisor. It's there for a reason.
Yep.
You find that trusted advisor that you're comfortable with, and you let that person do what they do best.
How many of the clients you guys had or have?
But before we go, I know Xavier has
Yeah.
a deal.
So-
Speaking
Yeah,
of deals,
so-
to
Oh,
close, Xavier
Somebody actually
has
has to go
his,
to
uh,
it's really
has
bad
his
because
deal.
I've been
been,
circling this term stagflation for the last 10 minutes. But next time you come on, I want to talk to you.
All
about
right.
that.
Which we-
Beautiful.
we can chat.
It's been
Yeah,
a pleasure. Thank you, and
The stag has
have
to
a
go,
wonderful
but we
time
can
the rest
talk
of
to
the
the
show
other stag
without
about
me.
inflation.
The other stag. Oh, well done. Something about a stag.
one stag has to go, but we can talk to the other stag about
Yeah,
Good to see you, good to
stagflation.
see you. And what we can do, I don't know if this makes it easier, is we could have Nick and Xavier seat, Judah, and you keep the 4-shot.
Would that be easier or should I stay?
Yeah.
Xavier, good luck, man.
Yeah. Xavier, thank you. Xavier Europe, CIO, Emergent Financial
I'm going to
Services.
miss you, buddy. I'm moving.
He's closing. He's doing his closer job today.
Now
Close.
I'm in
Kevin's got a clarification for you. Clarification, precious metals, meaning I can physically hold it in my hand and not the speculation market.
It was, and that's
yeah.
exactly the issue. So the precious metals you hold in your hand, you often have the premium to get in. So if you're paying 30% up front to buy gold, in other words, over the 30% over the current market price of gold, then you got to be prepared to hold on to that for a very long time, because gold's going to have to go up 30% for you to break even. So that's the only challenge with, I know those commercials for the precious metals look really great because they show you the chart of gold price. That chart does not take into account the 30% you will pay to buy, the buyer's premium, and the fact that when you go to sell, is the pawn shop guy really going to give you
Does
market price?
do people really do that?
Dude,
Do
I have-
people,
I have-
people
people
I have a
really buy
client-
gold off of TV?
I haven't.
Oh,
No,
people
I-
really do buy
Really?
physical gold.
Yeah.
Go
Yes.
to the JG Gold right here on Market Street. I have a client that literally a couple times a month will go in and buy gold coins and puts it in a safety deposit box
Yep, no, it's,
at
people,
his bank.
people will do it. And my issue with the physical one is, A, it really only probably pans out in the end that everything falls apart. And B, as Judah once wisely pointed out on this very show, what are you going to do? Scrape off the pieces of like a little bit of your gold bar to pay for your chicken today? Because you're not going to give someone a whole gold, you're not going to give someone $2,000 worth of gold coin, of one gold coin to buy a chicken. So what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to cut it up and pay
Well,
for the chicken?
You know I can go.
Jefferson Coin is who I was talking
Yeah,
about.
I was gonna say, you know, I couldn't go a whole show without mentioning the Romans, but it's interesting
Oh,
because
was
during the
wondering when this
hype,
was gonna happen.
Oh man, we
During-
were almost there. We were
almost there.
We should just
6 minutes left.
Damn.
6 minutes left.
Hyper,
Oh, then he's going to do the Greek. It's going to be
no,
horrible.
we'll just stick with the Romans
Oh,
for
okay,
now
good.
because there was
Tell
a
us
point
about the
of
Romans.
hyperinflation.
Nick, why don't you tell us about the Romans?
There you go. Hyperinflation, and I believe it was either Diocletian or Commodus, one of the others, decided to, instead of using the normal silver coins, issue gold coins, and it did not work, even though it was a much, much higher usage. I just thought it was interesting because there was a point at which they said, well, you know, gold is more valuable, we'll just issue a higher value coinage. And it still doesn't work because it's too high. It's going back to Judah's point, like, what are you going to do, chip it off to sell? But in reality, like, if you have something worth, like I always said, like, for the barter, if you've got something worth 200 carats and you only need 2 carats, you can't go to the farmer and say, like, can you give me 200 carats? Or, like, how do you split that? So it's an interesting
challenge.
concept,
It's
but
a-
it is a challenge.
And the world has obviously changed so substantially since then. But I had a conversation with a client last night that they're going to close using Bitcoin. They're going to use Bitcoin to, you know, however this works. It's above my understanding.
Yeah, I mean,
they're
electronic
using,
transfer from one to
and
another.
I guess it's going to turn to cash or something like that.
No, it may even
No, it
go.
stays-
Usually what will happen is it'll go Bitcoin to Bitcoin
Yeah.
from one person to town to another, and then the seller, the person who receives
No,
the
I don't think
Bitcoin
that's the way he's doing it. I think he's
interesting.
converting it to
to
cash.
Oh, and then he's going to show up with cash.
I think he's showing up with cash.
Oh, okay, yeah. You just sell your Bitcoin, get cash, and
So it's not a Bitcoin to Bitcoin transaction, it's a
It's-
Bitcoin into cash. I may be way out of my
oh,
pay.
so but they
now,
probably,
am I
probably
wrong?
just have money in Bitcoin, and they're going to sell the Bitcoin and use
Okay.
that cash to pay for the.
Yeah, so.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So now I know,
It's like
really don't know what I'm talking
well,
about.
no, it's like liquidating an investment, right? Because
Okay, got it.
Crypto is whether or not whatever your reason for doing it, it's still an investment, right? If somebody says, I think it's going to go up
I'll
over
have to
time,
bring more back to this, because
Right, so-
that conversation wasn't like that. It was,
Interesting. I
it
mean,
may have been
I would be
Bitcoin to
curious.
Bitcoin.
what you're having
I
more and
think
more.
It may
is
have
what-
been, it may have been Bitcoin
Yeah,
to
what's
Bitcoin.
happening more is you'll have things that go Bitcoin to Bitcoin. In other words,
I got
the
it.
whole
I'm
transaction never leaves the sort of the Ethernet
Metaverse or
the-
whatever.
yeah,
Well,
the-
well, they're calling them now
with the-
digital wallets.
The
I
digital
believe,
wallet.
right?
So it's one
well,
guy's Bitcoin goes to another guy's. I mean, each Bitcoin is what, 30-some thousand? 30
It's
What is it at?
it opened a little below 40. It's like 41K now.
So for 41,000. So basically,
I believe you
transfer one Bitcoin from me to you, and there's
can
my
transfer-
That's a
payment.
hell of a lot of money.
And
One
I'm-
Bitcoin. Yeah.
And I'm
well,
learning,
but it's not
so-
even one, right? I don't think it has to be one. I think right now
You
that
do
you're
slivers.
able to, you can do slivers to the upteenth
Yeah.
degree. Because you can buy that much, right? So like
Yeah,
you
it's
can buy
currency.
0.0037892 Ethereum.
The
so-
Bitcoin transactions for real estate are generally buyers and sellers or buyers that are very wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is not something that we're going to
Yes.
see on on Main
I
Street
doubt it.
here.
And to be honest, even by myself,
Well,
I'm
yeah.
not completely versed on how that it benefits you
Yeah, I'm-
to do that transaction in Bitcoin, other than it must feel nice to.
Yeah.
This was
Like,
over-
In
a
this school,
stud.
I bought
You feel
my
like a stud.
Bitcoin. Yeah.
Well, you could.
This
well,
was
let's
over
face it,
cocktail and a dinner, so I may have
at the
misunderstood
At the same
it.
time, you're taking something extremely volatile like Bitcoin and converting it into something that is more stable,
Real
like
estate.
real estate.
No,
So
what I'm saying
there's
is-
So let's go back to this
Yeah.
inflation
Okay.
conversation, because Dad was pretty solid that he thinks it's going to either plateau or go up. What do you two guys as millennials think? And how is that going to impact the rest of your world, moving forward, the way you guys live?
It's going to make it volatile.
It's going to make it volatile. I mean,
Yeah.
Gotta make it
well, for me, the fact that PPI, which is a producer price index, which
Sure.
is the prices that the wholesalers, the people in between, before it gets to your retail shop, are paying, is at 11. For me, if that trickles down. So there's no, I can't imagine.
So
it's
that
gonna go
eight- that
down.
8.5
That 8.5 is going up.
Going up. yeah,
That
I agree.
8.5% CPI is going up. Whether and how much more it goes up from here is anybody's guess. I mean, I don't see anything out there that would suggest that there is going to be downward pressure on prices.
Yeah.
Given where gas
Labor,
is, given
supply
where labor,
chain.
supply chain, given Ukraine.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
gas too. Like we were talking about this last time.
Everything
If
is.
fuel is high, then and the cost of transporting goods and transporting people is going up. No matter what, that's going to translate into higher prices.
That's why I read some. I was going to ask you 12:30 about this. I read something this morning about the Fed raising rates. Like, what's the true impact the Fed raising rates is going to have on the economy when the economy is impacted by supply chain issues, labor issues, and this Ukrainian-Russian war? Like, raising the rates, how much influence is it going to have on those three factors?
I think it's limited. It's
Right?
Yeah.
their rate
already there.
increases it's already been priced into the market to an extent.
Because raising the rates ain't going to stop the war.
No.
It's not going to get more people to work. It's not going to fix a chip shortage.
No.
Or a fertilizer shortage. Or a wheat shortage. Or a rice shortage.
So what'll affect is people's ability to borrow money, right? Short term.
That's
Yeah,
why these
bank
folks are going to
lending.
send us into a recession.
Well, I brought an article from Wall Street Journal about, inflation survivors of the 80s, and when next time we'll get Dad here, because we can talk about it from firsthand experience. But if you read through that, that's exactly what caused it,
Oh, it's-
right? Flat out, it was the Fed raising the rates and
So-
amongst other.
Well, so 80s, you have to remember, so the
Came after the
stagflation period, the stagflation period of the 70s
That's exactly
was high inflation, high unemployment. The 80s is when Volcker spiked the rates to
Yeah.
15
To
to
fix
kill
that.
inflation.
To kill inflation,
Right?
yeah.
So really, and
But
that's
it really
what...
did. It worked, but it took a long time.
It worked, but it caused. They admit they will like
Yeah.
Volcker and the people from when did Reagan win? 78,
No, he won 80.
80.
Yeah.
The people from the Reagan administration in the 80s will readily admit that they caused the 81 recession by spiking rates. Their theory was you have to do it anyway. It wasn't the first time. It happened in 1920 as well. Most people don't talk about the 1921 depression, because we focused
was
mostly
short.
on 1929 because it was so short.
It was short,
But the
yeah.
reason it was short is because they spiked interest rates to 14 to kill rampant inflation.
But to Jerry's point, let's assume they do that, right? Do you think it's going to kill inflation?
No, because
That's
the
my
issue.
point.
That's the issue, is because if indeed inflation is right now being caused by supply chain issues,
Labor and a war.
labor, and not by too much money in the system, then raising rates and
Death
taking
by a
money
thousand
out of
cuts.
the system does not stop that.
Right.
It will not stop that. And let's face it, you can kind of see that the Fed does not believe that this is the result of too much money in the system. Because if they really believed it, they would not be looking at just 8 rate hikes of 25
I
basis
think
points
too much
each.
money in the system may have caused it, but we're beyond that now.
Oh, it's well,
well
beyond,
beyond
that.
that.
Yeah, but I remember you guys sitting here calling this a year ago.
Because you looked at it and you said,
Yeah,
you
there's
looked
no
at
way.
the economic growth last year and you said this economic growth is not out of control.
Yeah.
Like, demand is not massive. We're not seeing GDP growth higher than it was in January of 2020. So you cannot blame it on demand. It's a supply chain issue, which means, and I think the Fed knows that too, because let's face it, 8 rate hikes of 25 basis points is 2%.
To Jerry's point, that's not going to fix any of
It's
those.
not going to fix it, and they know it.
It's gonna make it worse.
It's just to look like they care about it, because if they really believed
So they're
that-
going to do it just because they feel they should do something
Well,
for optics? Is that what you're
I
saying?
It
think
could
for
also be
optics
to put
and
arrows
to
back
put
in the
arrows
quiver.
back in the quiver.
Right,
Got
if a
it.
recession
Got
does
it.
happen,
So
now you can drop
they
rates.
can take it back. They can
Exactly.
take it away.
Yeah.
This worked last time. Let's build
Let's
that
try it,
interest rate
yeah.
up a little bit. Let's get everybody, living on the edge a little bit. Then start
Mm-hmm. And
pulling the
then-
stuff up.
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's the only possible explanation.
Well, because it's sure as heck not going to end the war, and it's sure as
I
heck.
mean, but interestingly, if the war does end, and we obviously want it to end for humanitarian purposes first, okay?
Inflation's
But
still
if this
going up.
war does end, some of these supply chain issues
Yeah.
will solve.
some, but not for a
Some,
while.
but not all.
And
I mean,
some
think
of
about
these-
it.
Gas was going up prior.
Plus,
So-
the
so how is-
fields destroyed by war that
Yeah.
once grew crops
Yeah.
do not suddenly, you cannot suddenly get yield off them again.
Sure, but you would think that supply chain shortages associated with shipping and transportation would start to
At the
alleviate.
end of
The funny thing is, some of those predate the war, though.
no, I
Remember
disagree.
sitting here in
I
2021,
agree with you. Disagree.
You
very-
also think,
Yeah.
let me finish. You also
Sorry.
think that that some of the issues associated with the media creating volatility in the market, which we have right now, if it bleeds, it leads, would alleviate.
That's really the only, to be honest, I would argue. and I
Scare
think
tactic.
Pete seems to be here, is that that's the only possible alleviation. In other words, the supply chain issues well predate the war in Ukraine,
As
right?
do the gas prices.
As do gas price increases. I think literally the only alleviation caused by the end of the war is that the expectation of inflation declines slightly, thereby pulling down. That's literally the only
It'll be emotional.
emotion.
Yeah.
It'll be emotional, but you're 100% right. All these inflation and everything. So we were talking about it before the war.
Before we were talking
right?
about last year.
And I just
But
don't.
that wasn't gas before the war. We weren't
Oh,
talking gas was
oh,
the issue.
Gas was up
Gas
big
was up.
time in
Yes.
2021 before the war.
We were
Yeah.
talking, before the war, we were talking labor and supply chain.
But
Before
gas
the
is
war.
part
As
of that.
well as gas. If you look at the gas price chart, gas prices were climbing well before
Yeah.
December
They
of
climbed
2020.
during the pandemic because no one was driving, and we had ample gas. And then as people started driving back again, then that drove gas prices going up.
That still pushes them up.
Yeah,
The-
they were still going up.
The main concern was supply chain and labor before the war. Anyway,
Well, I was saying, like, the supply,
move on
but
from
at
that.
the same time, there was less gas during 2021, for
so
whatever
it's,
reason.
So it's not
but-
going to be $5. It'll be 3.5.
Yeah, it'll
It'll
still-
be 4, but it won't be 2.
That's what we would
No,
hope.
but it
Yeah,
won't,
I don't think
exactly,
it's
and that's
going
the
back to
point, is
two.
that still drives up cost.
When did it get, how low did it get during the pandemic? Like buck
It was,
80?
no, it was less than that. It went negative at one point.
No,
during
he
the
means
pandemic.
gas
Gallon
at
of
the pump.
gas.
At the pump.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
so-
that's 180, 170, 180.
It was below $2 for
Below
sure.
two,
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't. I
That's
just don't
not
see.
coming
I
back.
just don't see that happening. I think. I
You'd
mean,
have to insanely drive up and incentivize drilling
Production, yeah.
and production. If you did, or listen, it comes to the end of the
Take
day. If
production
you
domestically.
well, I'm saying that's my point with every supply problem, right? It's just basic economics. If you have a supply problem, you stimulate supply. If you did that for each, whether it's subsidies or tax cuts, that's usually the ways you do it economically, right? Those are the general solutions to stimulating supply. You push up supply. And if you stimulate supply, that will come in and solve the problem.
but we're not talking about the wage side,
No.
and we're not talking about the lack of skilled labor, the lack of folks to do work, and
Right.
that's just never. That's not going away. And
That's-
any stretch of, I think we're 3.8 or 3.5% unemployment in
Yeah.
in the state
There
of
are
Virginia.
still more job openings than there are people
by
unemployed.
millions.
Yeah.
By
By,
millions.
by several million.
By millions on that end
By
of it.
several million.
Which is the key, right? Because if you hit a recession, the question is, are the people going to go back to work before the
Well,
businesses
not
go
to
out
be
of
a-
business?
Yeah, not to be a downer, but what
What
solves
happens
that
then?
is recession, and then people suddenly
Being
don't hold
forced
out
back.
anymore.
Well, I happen to
and
think
they-
we're already in a recession. I just think
Oh, I hope not.
It hasn't. It, to certain. certain
But we
people.
won't know. That's,
Well, I get that, but certain people, this inflation is recessionary to folks.
absolutely.
Without a
In
doubt.
terms of its impact on people, it is certainly devastating.
Yeah.
The question is, has economic growth turned negative, which we probably won't know for 2 years after it happens.
Absolutely, that's the point I'm trying
That's
to
the
make.
issue.
You know, the reality of it is by the time we can look back and say, well, these are the 2 quarters, we're going to be way past.
We'll be way past.
Way past.
To
it.
make sure
We won't
your
know.
emergency fund is intact.
Make sure
That's
the,
that.
Keith, you want to tease tomorrow's show? Promote it.
Yeah, so I'm excited. We're going to have the marvelous Scott Mortgage Morris in,
Yep.
and we're going to have Christy Beck in. We're going to talk a little bit Lake Monticello, keep this millennial conversation going on because it's super important in the real estate space. And then on Friday, we've got 2 Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors coming in talking about Fluvanna County and
Chris
budget.
Fairchild, Tony O'Brien.
There you go, talking about that stuff. So we've got an exciting week up. I booked some stuff for next week, which we'll talk about on Friday, which is going to be exciting. I'm taking some advice from a trusted advisor, and it's working out well. So do that. Take advice from trusted advisors.
That's
Alex and Nick, today Manana on Thursday.
Today, Manana is going to be fun. First, we're going to have Levi and Thomas from Streamline Plumbing. Good friends of ours. They came and helped us out. They're really clever guys. Young entrepreneurs. Yeah, I think both are under 25. I think
No, that
both
was
are
him,
under
actually.
25.
He did a booking for
I nailed that booking.
at once. And,
Levi
and
Thomas,
David
as well
Deaton
as
from
David
Deaton
Deaton.
Consulting. Business Consulting, yeah.
Very nice.
So
I've
some
seen him on
entrepreneurs.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's a good guy.
Yep.
David Dean.
We're excited to have him on, so.
Today Manana airs Thursdays at 10:15 a.m., guys. A fantastic program. Real Talk with Keith Smith tomorrow at 10:15, and Real Talk with Keith Smith Friday at 10:15. He looks like he's trying to close the deal here.
So this is my Class A contractor's license. I'm actually a licensed plumber.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
I'm a licensed gas fitter, plumber. Oh God, I got all these different classifications.
Fantastic
So you'll-
husband, great father,
Oh yeah.
great father-in-law,
And
Awesome
hopefully
friend.
a good co-host.
great co-host.
Thank you.
Great. What do you call? What do your grandchildren call you? Poppy?
I'm Pop.
Gramps?
I'm
Pops?
Pop. I'm Pop.
Fantastic Pop. All around distinguished gentleman. Keith
Jonas
Smith.
GG. So
Batman.
Batman.
Yeah, I'll say it. I'll say it before. I'll say it again. He's in my phone as Keith the Batman Smith.
And he's got a new website.
yeah, so the website is
Let
awesome.
them know what it is.
You know, it's called realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Take a look at
super
it. It's
easy.
right up there. It's great. You know, Jerry and Judah put it together. It's awesome. It houses all the shows, so I can just send folks web links.
right
It's
there.
a lot of fun.
We
And
encourage anybody watching the program to check out realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. And if you're so inclined, join the partnership by reaching out to Keith Smith on social media via email,
you go.
phone call, text message, realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Judah Wickower, job well done.
Thank you, Judah.
Thank you, Judah.
As always.
Nicholas,
Thank you.
Alex, and Keith. I'm Jerry, and this is Real Talk, presented by Yes Realty Partners. I Love Seville show is up in about 50 minutes. Take care, everyone.
and thanks, Xavier.
Yeah.
Yes.
Xavier is well done, gentlemen.
Thanks.
That was fun.